Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chasing Sound Live, episode 2. Excited to be back. We have a lot to talk about today. Last one was a lot of fun. Just getting going over here with Ecamm Live and trying to figure out where to look and all the buttons to press. But we're having a lot of fun, and happy 4th of July weekend to my friends who are watching here in the States. Um, my name is Brian from Chasing Sound, and we have a lot to talk about this week. Um, it's been 2 weeks since the last one, and already I was itching to do another one so quickly because there's so much to talk about. And if you're not aware, I do a weekly newsletter called Six String Sunday, which is a newsletter that I've been doing for over 250 issues at this point. You could head over to chasingsound.com and go subscribe to it. It's completely free, and it's just one of my favorite things to do in the world. We just put out one last week. I have one going out tomorrow that I'm just putting the finishing touches on. And, I wanted to talk a little bit about that type of stuff today. We're also going to talk about guitar podcasts. We're going to talk about guitar gear, and we're going to talk about guitar apps. So probably going to be a long one today, if I'm guessing. I got 2 pages of notes written down for today's live. So yeah, Six String Sunday. It's been a lot of fun. I've been doing it for a couple years now, and at first it used to be me just kind of compiling 6 stories, and then I don't even know when it first happened, but I started to compile more and change the format around, and I think it's in a really good place right now. For instance, like tomorrow's issue, I think it's about 1,500 words. So some people like that, some people don't like it, but we have a couple hundred people on there that do. And from what I've heard from a lot of listeners and a lot of readers, is that they are digging it and skimming through, checking the headlines, and then really getting into what they like. So that's been a lot of fun. And if you're not subscribed yet, I really wish you would go subscribe there. And of course, right here on YouTube, because like I said, I'm getting a lot of fun out of doing these lives. So would like to have more and more people join as we start doing more and more of them. So yeah, definitely subscribe to me here on YouTube. We are trying to get a nice big audience here so we can talk about guitar every other week. And if things go well, I'd like to do it even more often. So I was talking about Six String Sunday last week. We had a lot of different links, and I think what I'm going to try to do with some of these live streams is really, those are my favorite links of the week. But I'm going to try to talk about some of the stuff that I really loved the most from last week, and I'll also give you a sneak peek about some of the stuff I'm going to talk about in tomorrow's newsletter for July 4th. So this is what I've been looking at, really. Last week's newsletter, I talked about a lot of different things. We talk about gear, we talk about lessons, we talk about guitar culture and so on. But what I was really getting into a lot last week was Sweetwater's Gear Fest, which I put in last week's newsletter. I still haven't had a chance to get through all the videos, but man, there's so many heavy hitters there. I just wanted to show you guys some of the stuff that I've been checking out. So it was a 2-day event from Sweetwater, completely free. And they were running a bunch of deals, but the videos were really where they were at. And they were doing it live. For instance, this one, Guitar Tech's panel, Keeping Rock Ready, which is awesome. You had techs that worked with everyone from Guns N' Roses, Fleetwood Mac, Pantera. Really, really cool. Peter Frampton, Chris Lordalge, all about mixing. What else did I check out here? Andy Wood, another killer player. I talk so much about Ben Eller on my newsletter, and have taken like a lesson or two from him. Really great guy. Andy Wood, who he plays with, also really, really great guitar player. Yvette Young, if you haven't checked out Yvette Young yet, one of the first females to get a Ibanez signature model, including her and Larry and Nita Strauss. So really, really good. If you haven't checked out her band Covet, I suggest you do, because really great stuff. Julian Lage, I talk about him all the time. Just one of the best new jazz guitar guys. Really excited to see him come back and do live shows again. I've never been able to see him live and in person, but Julian Lage, go check that out. And there's a bunch of ones I'm missing here. Even the Steve Vai one, I missed. I didn't watch the whole thing because I've seen so much Steve Vai stuff at this point, but I'm sure it's amazing. Rick Beato, we talk about him all the time. Phil X from Bon Jovi, Paul Reed Smith, and Tim Pierce, which we're going to talk about next. Another one I listened to was the Warren Haynes one, which to me, I didn't catch it when it was live, but I did take a look at it after the fact, and it was awesome. It's really him demoing a bunch of gear, including his signature Gibson, Les Paul, and just like adapting to different styles, different playing styles. And he's so epic, whether it be him just sitting in with some band or him playing with Government Mule or when he played with the Allman Brothers Band. It's really awesome. And then Alex Lifeson, really, really cool. I got to catch up on this one too, but kind of interesting to see, what Alex is going to do next. But if you haven't checked it out yet, go check out sweetwater.com/gearfest. I'll try to put some of these links in the chat so you can click on them and check out the full thing that I'm talking about. Also, one of my favorite lessons from last week, one of my favorite video series is from Tim Pierce here. I always get a kick out of seeing Tim's setup because all the amps, he has his guitars, he has a bunch of really nice rack gear I see over there on the left, bunch of Neves, bunch of, looks like a fractal, a distressor. So really, really cool. But I really loved this lesson. It was one of my favorites of last week. And the reason I did was because, it's I thought it was a little bit clickbaity as a title, but it's true. He talks about why he did a solo for this song 200 times, or what he says would be 200 times. And the cool thing is he shows you some of his performances and talks about, how sometimes if you have the time that it's okay to work on something until you're happy with it. I kind of agree with him on some of the stuff, but I also think the opposite is sometimes true, where sometimes that urgency leads to a better take. I always think you should be prepared, especially if you're going to go work on somebody else's music. But this, it's kind of interesting to see all the different styles that he did. And the biggest thing I could take away from this is just his thought process and why it's so interesting. Because Tim Pierce is such a huge session guy. It was cool to see, his thought process that goes into all the different takes. And he doesn't show you all 200, of course, but he said he mentioned he did it every night for a couple minutes trying to come up with the right part. And there was takes in there that he could have used, but he didn't. And I think that's important, especially when it's your own music. You really want to get going and you want to use something that you're going to be proud of. But, those constraints, whether it be for a part or whether it be for a sound, I think are important. They help you make a selection. So I would say, get it until you think it's right, but also kind of give yourself a timeline, because I feel like if we give ourselves a timeline that's too big, like we're saying, I'm going to finish this solo in a week. It's like, in the back of my head, I'm always thinking, what could I have done in a day? Would that have been better? Am I really making any benefit here? So there's really two schools of thought there, but check out Tim's video and check out all his videos. He has, he's always dropping a ton of knowledge on his channel. So I really, really like that. That was really good. And speaking of, the only reason he even gets to be that good is because he's practicing all the time and he has a lot of chops. This is another thing that I found from last week. And I found out from one of our guys in our Discord chat that this is actually part of a bigger book. But this this guitar player, let me send it over here to the chat. This guitar player lesson was really cool because you have a 20-week program, and this is kind of what I was just talking about. You kind of set restrictions for yourself here in how much stuff you're able to do. So The main purpose behind this is to start slow, and I think you start at 50 BPM on your metronome, and in the first 18 weeks, you can't do any type of note ornamentation. So you can't do hammer-ons, you can't do pull-offs. So it's really strict. And if you take a look here, um, you are basically spending around an hour a day doing this. So it depends on how long you practice a day typically, but if you're really looking to get chops, and especially jazz chops, this is excellent. And by the end of the time, let's see here. By the end of the time, I mean, you have like stuff here at 200 BPM, which is just wild. And then they finally start introducing stuff, in week 18 where you can do pull-off slides, bends, and so on. But really, really cool. And I started on this a little bit last week. Haven't been able to get too much to it this week because it's been a crazy week. But check this out. I just put it into the chat. Supercharge your chops. I love this type of stuff. It's kind of similar to stuff like, the Vi 10-hour workout and all that. It's just a lot of fun. So check that out. Supercharge your improv chops in just 20 weeks. And that was all from last week. And there's a lot more links if you go to the website and check out all the things I linked to. I probably over 20 links. This week, I'm finally putting the finishing touches on tomorrow's issue. And I think one of the first links that I'm sharing is Ian Thornley of his solo stuff, and especially of Big Wreck, is on Josh Smith's Flat 5 interview show. And it kind of tied into a lot of the other things I wanted to talk about. Ian Thornley, if you haven't heard his stuff, you really owe it to yourself to go check out his music. All the Big Wreck stuff is really, really good. His Thornley side project stuff was great. His solo albums were great. He's just a really great singer. He's a great guitar player. He's a great songwriter in general. So, yeah, he was on with Josh Smith, and one of the things that stood out to me is that he's so super humble. He's such a great player, and that's somebody I actually did get to see live before this whole pandemic hit. Just a really humble guy and just a monster player. And on the opposite side of that, in the next couple days, I started listening to Ariel Posen, who, if you know me, I talk about him all the time because I think he's a fantastic slide player. He was just on Eric Krasno's podcast. So I kind of want to start talking about podcasts now and some of the podcasts that I listen to. So this is a newer one that I started listening to. I've been listening to Eric Krasno for a really long time because I grew up listening to his band Soul Live, which was for a long time a great trio, and then they added more pieces. But man, one of the coolest jazz guitar guys around, and it's so cool that he has a podcast now. He was interviewing Ariel. And like I said, Ariel Posen, if you haven't listened to him and you are into slide guitar or just really good songwriting, go check it out. So this is a new one I'm listening to, Eric Krasno Plus One. And he's had a lot of great artists on in the last couple weeks too. So very excited about that. Another guitar podcast I listen to is The Guitar Hour. You probably know this one, but this is another one I listened to last week. Guitar Hour podcast has David Beebe, and Tom Quayle, who we'll be talking about a little bit later. Also has Dan Smith and Jake Wilson. Sometimes they have Jonathan Cordy on as the main hosts. But this week they had Tosin Abasi on from Animals as Leaders. And they were talking about selective picking. They were talking about gent as a genre. They were talking about different guitars that he's making. And if you could love a song that you wrote as much as a song from somebody else, which I thought was kind of interesting. But Guitar Hour podcast is always incredible. I try not to listen to this one in the car like I do some other ones because they get so deep into topics that I really, really want to pay attention and go back to it. So a lot of times I'll leave these ones for like when I'm sitting at home and can really, really focus on what they're talking about because guys like Tom Quayle are just some of the most amazing teachers I've found on YouTube, and they're a lot of fun. So yeah, definitely check out the Guitar Hour podcast. Tosin Abasi latest guest. You also see guys like Jordan Rudess on here, which is awesome, of Dream Theater. even stuff like surviving social media burnout. That was around the time when somebody like Mateus Asado said they were leaving social media for a while. But you can see there's a lot of different cool topics here. So Guitar Hour podcast, really, really recommend it. Next one is No Guitar is Safe. This is one of the first guitar podcasts I ever listened to. I think I've listened to every single episode of this one, and it's just because it's so good. Jude Gold of Guitar Player has been doing it for a long, long time now, and I feel like he's doing it less than usual. Maybe there's less, it's not as weekly as it used to be, but I always get excited when another episode of this podcast drops because he gets great guests. I mean, there's so many people on there that I've found through that podcast that I'm so appreciative. Jude Gold has been writing at Guitar Player for a really long time. And like I said, the guests that he gets on there are just awesome. Again, Julian Lage, Misha Mansour from Periphery, Jeff Berlin, Tracy Guns, Bumblefoot, Troy Van Leeuwen, who plays in Queens of the Stone Age, and he played in a number of bands before that. Andy Timmons. I mean, he had on Steve Vai, he had on Joe Satriani. Anyone you can think of, Jude probably had it on. And in addition to that, Jude is also a really great guitar player. He plays out with a couple bands and is a really good slap guitar player, which sounds kind of weird, right? Because not that many people really do that type of style, but he does, and he even put out a book on it, which I haven't been to in a while, but I did pick up when he first came out, and it's really, really cool. If you want to kind of get some of that thump and pop that a bass player would do and get it into your live playing and your guitar playing in general, go check it out, and then check out this podcast because, No Guitar Safe is awesome. Jude is such a cool guy. Moving on, we got Everyone Loves Guitar, another one which is like, man, I'm trying to break down how every one of these podcasts is different. Everyone Loves Guitar. So this one is from Craig Garber, who you can see here in the upper left. Guitar guy, marketing guy. He's had not only guitar players on, but he's had a lot of different people on. And some of them are less known and some of them are more known. But one thing about Craig, which, I've listened to his podcast for so long, is that he's not afraid to ask the really, really hard questions. And sometimes at first you might think that it'll be awkward for the guests. He's asked people like Vai and all these big stars. He just will go out there and ask these wild questions. Not even just about guitar, but about their lives and really dig deep. And I don't really, maybe Craig can tell me down the line, but he gets all these people to really open up to him. And sometimes the episodes are really emotional and really, really cool. So check that guitar podcast out. I can't talk. I've been talking a lot here, but check that podcast out. Everyone Loves Guitar. I'm just seeing he has that cool Everyone Loves Guitar mug here in the upper left. I definitely want to get one of those, but, yeah, great podcast, that I think you should definitely check out. The next one, Guitar Wank. So, this one is like a more of like a old curmudgeons guy podcast. Both of the guys are really, really cool. You have Bruce Foreman, who is a legend of the studio and especially like bebop guitar. And then you have Scott Henderson. I actually didn't know Bruce before this, but I definitely knew Scott Henderson, and I think that's how I first found the podcast out. Scott Henderson is a great jazz guitar guy. He plays, he does his own solo stuff, but I actually found him when I was going to school for guitar through his band Tribal Tech, and man, that is some really, really great stuff. If you're into like jazz fusion, check out Tribal Tech and Scott Henderson, and check out his solo albums. They're all really, really good. They're really well produced. And they always have different guests on as well. As you can see, some big heavy hitters like Tommy Emmanuel. I think it was in this week's newsletter, I talked about how it was, a couple decades now since we lost Chet Atkins, who was a big inspiration to Tommy Emmanuel. And it's, all these things are connected. That's something I like to do as a guitar player, is if I get into Tommy Emmanuel and I'm like, who were his inspirations, and Chet Atkins was such a huge one for him, and, named him a CGP, which Chet really didn't do that often, which was a certified guitar player. So, Tommy is really the real deal. So yeah, go check out Tommy Emmanuel on here, dropping some knowledge. Go check out Robin Ford, as you can see from April. There's just so many great episodes on here. Josh Smith coming in for an episode. Guitar Wank, really, really great. And don't forget to check out all of Scott Henderson's stuff. Then we have the Chasing Tone podcast. And I had to talk about this one because it's so similar to Chasing Sound. I can't remember when the Chasing Tone podcast first came out, but, there's a lot of great guys on there. Of course, there's Brian Wampler. There's Richard Oliver, and you have Blake Wyland, who also has another great podcast that you should check out called The Tone Mob. But yeah, I've been listening to Chasing Tone for a couple years now, and it's just a lot of fun. Some people don't like all the banter at the beginning, but I really do. I liked hearing all the crazy escapades that are going on, how much Brian is digging his Epiphone ES335, what Blake is doing with his new album, and all his doing a video every day for a month. There's so many different stories that they come up with, and it's really, really cool. Plus, I don't really know, at least right now, any other podcast where you have somebody like a Brian Wampler. If there is, let me know. But Brian is so cool that he knows all about the insides of all these different pedals. So when Richard or Blake will say, hey, what about this DS1? What about this Boss HM2? And he'll be like, oh, let me take a look at the schematic really fast, and he'll already know about what they're talking about and how he would do it. And that's something about Wampler. They have a lot of original pedals, but a lot of them are takes on different pedals that have already been popular in the Wampler style. And go check out the Chasing Tone podcast, and then go check out Brian Wampler on YouTube as well, because he does the same sort of thing on his YouTube channel where he'll breadboard a circuit right in front of you and show you different things. So really, really cool. I'm a big fan of Chasing Tone. So there are more podcasts that I listen to, that are not guitar, and there's other guitar ones that I'm probably not even mentioning, but those are ones that regularly have episodes that I'm listening to on a consistent basis. So we have a couple people in the chat right now. So if you have your own podcast that you listen to, whether they're guitar or music podcasts, let me know. I didn't even mention stuff like Song Exploder, which is another great podcast I love, and all these other different ones. But or Strong Songs, another incredible podcast about dissecting music. If you like any cool guitar podcasts, let me know in the comments, even if you're checking this out at a later time. So that was, I'll have a couple of those links in tomorrow's newsletter. And I've had a post on Chasing Sound that goes over some of my favorite guitar podcasts, and those are definitely it. Like I said, I would like to know what you guys listen to, and what podcast player you use. Right now, I've been using so many different ones over the past bunch of years. I've kind of just ended up on Castro, which is a great podcast player that allows you to kind of sort and triage all the different podcasts that you like, and kind of put them in their place, so that it's a lot of fun. Also, I am talking about different gear and different lessons in tomorrow's newsletter. The first one is Anthony from Texas Blues Alley. Used to be called Stevie Snacks because it's all about Stevie Ray Vaughan. It was all about Stevie Ray Vaughan and the blues. Anthony from Texas Blues Alley put up a video where he says he's practicing if he wants to gets his chops back up with 12s, so 12 gauge strings, and on a fat neck of his Strat. And I thought about that, and this is something I kind of done similarly in the past. If I'm ever out of practice with the guitar, and I'm a little older right now, sometimes I don't get the chance to play guitar every day like I'd like to. Every once in a while, I'll play my Strat, which I just set up as a slide guitar. So the action's high, the strings are a higher gauge, so it's a little bit more difficult. But I used to do this a long time ago too. I would play my bass. So if you have a bass handy, and if you don't, and you're a guitar player, you probably should. Even some of these Squiers, I have a Squier one sitting around here just for laying down parts, for demo tracks. If you don't have one, you should try to pick one up because they're so helpful in practicing, your groove, practicing bass in general. And what you'll find is when you practice on a bass and you move back to guitar, it almost feels like you're a superhero because the bass strings are such a heavy gauge that once you hit back on a guitar that has maybe like nines or tens, you're flying around the fretboard. So if you haven't played for a while and you're just getting back into it, definitely use your bass or see if you have another guitar that you can put a little bit heavier strings on, adjust the neck so you can jump right back in. So that's another one I was kind of messing with the other day, and just kind of one of my favorite links of tomorrow's newsletter. And then we had gear, right? So we had gear like the new Ibanez stuff. So a lot of ads here on Guitar World. I don't like it. I don't mind seeing Greg Koch over here on the right side. One of my favorite guitar players, his new P90 Gristle Tones. Don't mind seeing those ads, but I feel like Guitar World and Guitar Player had a lot of ads lately. So I'll be the first to admit that I've only gotten into this guitar player, Chica Nito, over the last couple months. Similar to somebody like Mateus Asado, he is a huge guitar player on Instagram, and he has a new signature guitar from Ibanez that has pushed them into headless guitars. So if we take a look at this is the new signature model, the Ichi 10. Not really sure about the price on this, but it looks pretty wild. Ibanez's first foray into headless guitars is first, as far as I know, and it looks pretty cool. I saw him playing this guitar on his Instagram. He was just teasing it, and now he's officially shown it off, and I think it's cool. But the regular models here, like the Q52, this is about $1,000, has your regular frets. The Q54, also about $1,000. This is where it starts to get a little bit more interesting. The QX54QM, I mean, that's one hell of a model number. And stuff like the QX52, QX527PB. These models are only around $10.99. This one's $1,000. This one's $11.99. So all in that lower thousands range. And one thing that one of our guys on the Discord said was the fan frets on these are running the opposite way, which is kind of a little interesting to me. Different than something like a Strandberg, or a Kiesel. So that's kind of interesting. But I do want to play one of these because not only do they look cool, but I do want to try these like reversed fan frets. I like the carve here of the lower horn, and I just want to hear how they sound. I've heard a little bit of the signature model, but I want to see how well these $1,000 versions play. And what I think is, I think this might help. Like Ibanez was such a big influencer in getting 7 strings and 8 strings into the hands of a lot of younger guys growing up. So I think this will probably do the same thing for headless guitars. Yet to be seen, but I think it's going to be kind of a big deal. Would definitely like to know what you guys think about this type of guitar, or if you have a guitar like this already. I'll put this link into the chat too, so you can take a look at all the different models. But yeah, I kind of think it's interesting. Would definitely like to know what you guys think. Would you pick one of these up? Do you even like the look of a headless guitar? Do you like the style of a headless guitar? I gotta say, some of these look really beautiful. So whether it be the signature, whether it be the lower end version here with the Q52, really cool stuff. And kind of, they kind of look a little wacky. And going from wacky to another wacky thing, I was really excited to be able to share this. I'm not quite there yet where I know how to share videos on this live stream, but I will soon. I'll share this in the chat as well. And this is the Bigsby pedal. And it's not just any pedal. It's, as you can see, it looks like a Bigsby trem, and it's in the form of an actual pedal that you would step on. Um, and the crazy thing is that Bigsby is endorsing this. So like I said, I don't really want to get copyright claimed or anything on any of these videos, but um, I'll mute this here and I'll kind of play some of the audio, some of the video. This band is playing the Bigsby pedal. The manufacturer is Game Changer Audio, and they have already produced a lot of wild pedals in the past. Some of their fuzzes, and there's a lot of crazy pedals coming out from them. So it kind of makes sense. As you can see here, he's tapping on the Bigsby itself. It's like like you're really pushing on the arm. It sounds really, really good here. I wonder how well that it tracks, when you're playing. But if it tracks anything like this video, I think it's going to be really cool. So yeah, this is the Bigsby pedal, and it is $379. So it's not a cheap pedal, but I think it's going to be really, really cool. And it's one of those wacky pedals that I definitely want to check out. I don't know that I'll buy it for that price because that's a little bit much for what it does. But man, Game Changer Audio. If you'd like me to do a review and you're by some chance watching this, I would love to check it out because it seems really, really wild. I put this in the chat too, so definitely take a look at that. It's wild, I mean, I like that they're trying these new things out because I don't know, I've seen so many things from NAMM where there was that pedal where you can put different liquids in it and it changes the sound of the distortion. This kind of has the same vibe of that to me, where it's like putting a real Bigsby at your foot. Is it better than if you had it at your hand? In some ways, I think yes, because a lot of folks, don't want to buy something like a Gretsch, or maybe they don't want to outfit their guitar with a Bigsby or deal with some of maybe the tuning stability problems of a Bigsby. So this kind of gives you a Bigsby without all the hassle of having to actually have a Bigsby on there. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I'm definitely going to check it out. I want to play that pedal in person when it comes out and ships to some music stores because it looks very cool. And then kind of to close out here, I wanted to talk about guitar apps because last time we talked so much about different Mac apps. I kind of just went off on a tangent of some of my favorite Mac apps that I liked. And I said, I have a crazy amount of iOS apps on my phone right now. And most of the apps I'll be talking about today are both iOS and Android. But for the most part, I'm using iOS over here, whether that be something on my iPad or something on my iPhone. These are apps that I didn't talk about last time we did a live stream. Last time I talked strictly about Mac apps, and they're different. Like I might use Guitar Pro on my Mac, but I won't use Guitar Pro as much on my phone. And there's even apps for the watch, if you have something like an Apple Watch. So let's talk about them. I don't have the setup right now where we can go directly to my phone, but I did bring up the pages of some of the apps that I wanted to talk about, either their main websites or their app pages on the Apple App Store. So we got to start with the big one here. Solo. I mentioned before that we were talking about Tom Quayle and David Beebe. This is their app, and take a look. This is what it looks like right here. It's $10 right now on the App Store, and if you open it up right away without looking into the tutorials, you might not know what's going on. But man, I remember the day this app came out. I was so looking forward to it because on the Guitar Hour podcast, they were teasing this app for a while. And then it came out, and Tom and David started putting out a lot of videos around the app. And I was just really, really excited. So, and I shared this in our Discord channel, our Discord chat. And so many players, are really getting a lot of mileage out of it, including myself. So, $10 sounds like a lot for an app. A lot of people are like, I don't spend money on apps. I think that's crazy, number one. Let's talk about that for a second, actually. You think about what stuff like, a coffee costs. You think about what stuff like, takeout costs or a guitar lesson in general. And then you think about what stuff like this costs, and there's two rules that I always follow. Number one is the rule for book buying that came from this money guru guy called Ramit Sethi, and his rule is that if even one idea in a book changes your mind or helps you in some way, and the book is like $20, just buy it immediately. And as you can see, if you look around my room, I don't know if you can see it too much here, but stack of books there, ton of books in the back. I'm a big fan of reading, whether that be physical books, magazines, and the same thing goes for apps. While this is a $10 app, I think the stuff contained in it is so worth it, and that's going to be the same for every app that I talk about today. So yeah, Solo. What does it do, and why has it been helping so many people that have come across it? If you look at the app screen over here, you start on there's two different things you can do here. The first one is you can pick all different chord changes. So like in this example over here, it's autumn leaves, where autumn leaves will be the chord changes, and then you'll choose your level. So you could even start with something as basic as just root notes. But for this example, they have root, third, fifth, and seventh. And then what's the order? Are you playing in the order of root, third, fifth, and seventh? Are you going in reverse, or are you going randomly? And then it'll pick a key for you, or you can choose your own key based on the chord changes, and you start the changes workout. So when that happens, you'll see what they show here on the left. So for instance, the first chord here is C minor 7. Next chord coming up after that is F7. And then under the C minor 7, you see 1, 5, flat 3, flat 7. And what that is you have to hit all the intervallic functions of that chord. And then when the F7 comes up, you have to do, for instance, right here, 3, flat 7, 5, and 1 based on that chord. And the cool thing is that your phone is always listening. You don't need an extra mic for this. Your phone is always listening for the right note. And after you calibrate it the first time, it's really, really accurate. So if you play the right note, so like C, for instance, in the C minor 7, it'll start going on to the fifth of that chord. And it's really, really accurate. So that's its biggest claim to fame right now, is that it helps you understand all these intervallic functions on the fretboard, and it's awesome. And then the other thing it does, and I'm not sure if they show it here. Oh, yeah, is the scale trainer. So for instance, right here, you're starting in C and you're picking the type of scale that you want. So right here, not only are you your starting root C, but you're also asked to play the Dorian scale, and then it's also on random. So you're not just playing 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, back to 1. In this case, you're starting with the 1, you're playing the 4, then you're playing the flat 7. So you're skipping all around. And what this helps you do, if you put the work in, is really learn the fretboard with these intervallic functions. And if that doesn't make any sense, I'm not going to get into it on this live stream. I already feel like we're talking about maybe a little bit too much theory for a July 4th live stream. Actually, you know what? Now it's July 4th. Let me show you something cool, guys. Look at that. I can only do so much on these live streams. I'm still getting going, but we did have a little bit of fireworks. And if you're here on this live stream, I do appreciate it. So yeah, this app is awesome. You should get it. You should spend the $10. Again, it's 2 fancy coffees. It's 2 whatever is $5 each, but it's really worth it, and it's one of the best apps I've gotten recently. And that's the same thing for books. Like I have this book called The Advancing Guitarist. I think we're going to do a giveaway on the next live stream if we get enough people on for that book. And that book contains multitudes of different lessons that could take you years to master. And I love books like that. Books like $20, and it just contains so much. So go check out Solo from Tom Quayle, David Beebe. It's really, really good. Moving on, we have Fender Tune. There's so many different tuning apps on the App Store right now. I'm not sponsored by Fender. I wish I was, but this is Fender Tune. I've found it to be really, really good. If you're just tuning your guitar, it's listening through the microphone, and you can tune to standard. So EADGBE, no big issue. And you can see it even gets, there's a Pro tuner here. I don't use that right now. I just use the regular tuner. And I also like pressing on the buttons next to the strings to hear the notes. Sometimes I like to get it as closely in tune as possible with the automatic tuner. And then I'll also use the manual part of it just to hear the notes and make sure that I'm really, really in tune. So if you're playing guitar at your friend's house, now that we're getting back out and actually able to do that, or if you just need a quick tuner at your desk while you're practicing, you don't want to break a pedal out or another tuner, a hardware tuner, and you have your phone around probably, use this. It's free. One thing that I've liked to do is, like in my Strat that I've been using for slide stuff, I have been doing, I've been doing C tuning. So C tuning where not really familiar. I'm just starting to get going with it, but you can actually choose in the app a C tuning or drop D. I mean, easy tunings, but something like a C tuning is cool that, it's not your traditional tuning, and the app will help you tune that way as well. There's also some lessons in here. There's a chord finder. We'll talk about that, in some other apps. It is multifaceted, but I use it strictly for the tuner. And after a tuner, and after, a learning thing like solo, one thing to have that is important is a metronome. And this is one of my favorite metronomes. It looks really, really bare bones. I got this app a long time ago at this point. Avi Bortnick made it. He is a John Scofield sideman, and it's called Time Guru. And it doesn't look like anything crazy, and it's not. But the biggest things you could do here is you could change the sound, you can change the meter select, but the biggest feature of Time Guru is that you can have it, if you look over here, it says random mute 50%. You can have it randomly mute a beat. So, you're usually used to, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going along and it stays, it actually has a click every time. What this will do is randomly mute a beat, so you have to be more aware of the beat, and it really strengthens your inner clock. So check this out. It's $2 in the App Store. Really, really great metronome app. I love it. It's my main metronome app that I'm using. I don't even have a hardware metronome right now. I used to use stuff like, the Boss Dr. Beat and all that stuff, but Time Guru is my main metronome that I'm using. Again, similar to the Fender Tune, I just take it out because I have my phone with me all the time, and I'm using that. If you want something a little bit more advanced and you're into crazy time signatures, go check out Tempo Advance. It's $4. It's from the developer Frozen Ape, which is a fantastic developer name. You can see it's approved by Mike Mangini, who's the drummer for Dream Theater after Mike Portnoy left the band. Love Mike Portnoy. But you can imagine, if Mike Mangini and Dream Theater is approving this, it is a wild metronome. I've had it for years, and I still only know a little bit of what it does. But the cool thing is that it has a polyrhythm mode, so you can have a metronome going inside of a metronome. It also has a setlist feature, which is really, really cool, especially if you want to use this live. So the setlist feature has stuff like you can see here. It says Dream Theater, and it'll just have the tempo, especially if you're using odd time signatures or polyrhythms within the song. You can do that, and it's a really cool looking metronome. Been a big fan of it. Like I said, I don't use it as much as Time Guru because I'm not typically getting into these wild time signatures, but I really do like it. The Tempo Advance, only $4 on the App Store. And again, these are super easy to search in the App Store, whether it be iOS. Some of them are on Android. But again, similar to Guitar Podcast, I would like to know what you guys are using. If you're into a certain app that I've missed, number one, I might have probably used it already because I have folders and folders of just music tool apps. But I would like to know what you use because I think that's really cool. And similar to guitarists, you find out about different stuff. But we're not done. We still got 1, 2, 3, 4 to go. Um, the next one I wanted to talk about is iReal Pro. So this is a really, really cool app that's been out for a long time, has an incredible amount of songs in it right now, especially if you're a jazz player or bossa nova player, blues player, or if you just want a really good songbook. What iReal Pro is if you ever heard of the real book or the fake book, these are all these books that jazz and blues guys, mainly jazz guys, used to use to have the major chord changes and maybe some of the main riffs of a song. So if they were tasked at playing that song, they could learn it really, really quick and go about their business. I actually haven't installed it on Mac, but now that I'm seeing it here, I want to. I've used it on the iPhone for years, and sometimes I just use it to try out new things that I'm learning. And I think that's one of the most important things that you can do as a guitar player is if you are if you're learning something like the Dorian scale, for example, or if you're learning something as simple as the major scale, the pentatonic scale, and you want to practice it, the last thing that I would recommend to you is just simply practicing with a metronome and running the scale up and down, because we don't do that. We don't do that as guitar players unless you're a robot. And if you are, that's great. Hello, welcome to the stream. But most of us are not, and I think the best thing you could do for yourself is to pull up a backing track like one of these ones from iReal Pro, and practice your scales over that, because then you're practicing in a musical context, and you're able to really hear it in a real context, a real musical context, and I think it helps it stick a little bit more. At least it's been the experience for me over the past couple of years. So yeah, iReal Pro, really, really great. You can see 4.8 stars out of 500,000 musicians, 11 years. And yeah, I probably got this when it first came out. It's a great real book app, and I think you should get it. It's awesome. Then there's other stuff that can help you. I've been a big fan of this developer for a long time. This is one of the first apps they came out with called Chord with an exclamation mark. The easiest way I can explain this app is that it's like, if you're ever familiar with those books growing up called the Guitar Grimoire, which just had a stack of scales in it that you can learn. This is kind of like that, but fancier, and it looks better. And it does the same thing for chords as well. So if you ever need to know a chord, or if you ever need to know a scale, you should get this app. It's really helpful. It looks beautiful not only on the iPhone, but it looks really nice on the iPad as well. You can hear the notes. It has alternate fingerings for scales and chords, and is just like a pocket encyclopedia of all this type of stuff. I've seen so many apps over the last decade or so that tried to do this, and this one's a little bit older too. But this is the best one that I've found. And like I said, I don't think this app is getting updated as much as it had been in the past, because the developer's focusing on a new app, which we'll talk about in a second. But it's already really, really solid. Whatever tuning you're in and so on, it's really, really cool. The new app that he's working on, which came out a couple months ago, is called SongKit. And man, this is a wild app that is really, really cool. It's perfect for not only guitar and bass players, but also piano players. And the only way I can explain this app is that it's like a text editor for musicians, because you have different sections. So like, for instance, in this top section here, you can write your lyrics out, you can write your chords, and then the keyboard will match what you're doing. So right now here, we're writing a chord chart along with the lyrics, and you can double click those chords and you can see the chords themselves. But if you go down here a little bit and you look at the rest of it, you have tab, and when you switch into tab, the keyboard changes into a tab keyboard, so you can kind of get going with tab. you can make it look really nice formatted wise, especially on the iPad. Right here on the left side where it's in light mode, you have the intro, you have the chords at the top, you have the riffs in tab, and then the verse has, your traditional chords, where you have your chords over your lyrics, your chorus, your verse again, and then the solo. And it's really, really good. So yeah, intelligent layout. So it's showing you that you can, depending on what you're working on, it'll bring up the keyboard for that function. And it also interacts with other apps, and it also exports PDFs of those. So if you want to print a sheet out for your bandmates, this is a great app for that. And it's just getting going, right? So the developer is really, really active in working on this app, and any ideas, I've sent over to him, or any stuff I've done with the demo of this app before it even came out. He's been really, really great in getting into the app. So go check this out. You can transpose songs, you can write songs, and everything just, again, looks really, really beautiful. One of the best apps I've seen on iOS and iPadOS so far. And yeah, like I said, I'd like to know what apps you guys are using, but I got one more I want to talk about, and then I have a couple kind of honorable mentions. So a long time ago, when I was first writing Chasing Sound, one of the first posts that I did was the perfect practice setup. You probably could still find it, probably from maybe 2017 or something like that, when Chasing Sound was just getting going. One of the apps that I used for that was, I had my Telecaster probably at the time, and I was using an iRig as an interface into my phone, and I had a pair of headphones, and I was using the Jam Up app from Positive Grid. Positive Grid is, gotten more popular lately with some of their hardware stuff, like their amps, but they really started with stuff like plugins and stuff for iOS. So here is Jam Up, which is a little bit older. They also have something like Bias Effects, which you can use for effects. But this is one of the ones that I used early on, called Jam Up, and it's from Positive Grid, and it's just a lot of fun. It gives you amps, and it gives you the ability to put tracks in that you want to practice over, and you can, as it says here, it's so funny, it says practice anywhere, and I couldn't agree more, because you're able to practice with a pretty decent amp emulation anywhere in your bedroom, or if you're waking up early and you don't want to disturb anybody, or you're playing late and you don't want to disturb anybody. This is a really, really great app to have, and really I couldn't recommend all the bias, all the Positive Grid stuff more. One of the cool things about some of the Positive Grid stuff is that you can check out all the tone cloud presets, and if you're a fan of John Petrucci, or somebody like Mark Holcomb here, Ola England, all these people, sometimes the artists themselves, and then sometimes real just fans of those guitar players, have made presets that sound like they're different songs. Like, for instance, like Metallica's One, you might find a preset for that. Enter Sandman Clean sound, all this type of stuff. So it's really, really cool. Go check it out if you need something to practice with, and you have like a small guitar interface for your iPad or your iPhone. All the Positive Grid stuff is really a lot of fun. And I think that's mainly it, other than just, I want to do maybe an album recommendation all the time here. And one I've been really getting back into a lot lately was this album from Greg Howe, Introspection. Man, I was listening to, I can't remember who I was listening to before it, but Apple Music has that feature where they'll start playing similar artists to who you were just listening to. And I was listening to Greg Howe after that, and Introspection, and this is an album I hadn't listened to in so long, but I'm really, really glad I did, and it's just so good. It's amazing shred guitar, but with feel. And again, we're talking about robots before. It really sounds good. I actually got into Greg Howe with this Hyper Acuity album back in 2000. That's when I first heard about him, about 21 years ago. Um, and then, a little bit after that, I started to dip into the rest of his catalog, but I hadn't listened to this Introspection album in so long, and I'm glad it came back up because I just re-added it to my Apple Music, and I've been listening to it a lot. Another thing, too, is that, you can see that he works with Richie Kotzen so much. Man, Richie Kotzen, what kind of crazy output has he had over the years? With all the different stuff he's done, whatever band he's in, and even with his solo stuff. I think he just turned 50, put out that 50-song album, stuff with the Winery Dogs. I mean, his output is incredible. So check out Greg Howe, check out Richie Kotzen. Actually, one other thing I was looking at here in my notes was more apps. That's not the only thing. So we talked about a ton of apps today, but there's 3 other apps that I think would be helpful. An app for tab, so something like Ultimate Guitar would be good, or simply searching something on the web is easy enough if you need tab. But there are apps like Ultimate Guitar or Guitar Pro that make it easier for you to do that. A recording app, and that could be as simple as something like the recording app on your phone, or that could be something like GarageBand. I have friends who work in GarageBand from their phone or from the iPad and just make these crazy creations. And if you ever want to get into recording and you have an iPhone, an iPad, a Mac, start with GarageBand, because if you ever make the choice to move up to something like Logic, GarageBand is like baby Logic to me. So it's really, really good to have, and I think you should check it out. And then the last one, and we kind of talked about this a little bit during the Mac apps a couple weeks ago, but an interval trainer. And there's a couple different ones out there. There was a couple that I had that the developer has stopped supporting. So, just search on the the App Store for interval trainer. And this is different than solo. It's the same sort of type of app, but an interval trainer will play a set of intervals, and you have to understand what it is. Is it a perfect fourth? Is it a fifth? Is it a third, minor third? These apps are really good when you don't have your guitar, because if you put a pair of headphones in and you start doing these interval trainings, it will help your relative pitch, and that is so important when you're soloing on the neck, when you're trying to transcribe something. It's really, really helpful. So an interval trainer is really, really big. If you have any questions about anything I talked about today, and I know I talked about a lot, feel free to leave a comment on the video. I will be, checking them out from time to time. And if you missed this one, feel free to jump on the next live. I'd like to have you to ask any type of guitar questions. Again, don't forget to sign up to Chasing Sound, 6-String Sunday newsletter, which again, it goes out every Sunday, has been going out every Sunday for years now, and collects the best guitar stuff out there. Really, really a big fan of it, and I hope you will be too. Like I said, any questions, feel free to leave a comment, and I will see you guys on the next live stream. Take care and have a great weekend.